to this live webinar on review paper writing. We will be starting the webinar shortly, so please be seated and relaxed and attend this webinar, and you will have a lot of information regarding review paper writing which will be put forth. Uh, I hope all of you are safe and healthy during this pandemic time, and because most of the most of the places are either under lockdown or coming out of the lockdown. I know that many of them do not have universities which are functioning completely. So this working out from the home in the form of live webinars will be very useful in order to propagate the knowledge and spread the knowledge, whatever is available and applicable to all the participants who are going to join here for today's webinar. Uh, so basically, we will be talking about today about the review paper writing. Previously, we had addressed about the thesis writing and other aspects of webinar. So today's focus will be on the review paper writing. This webinar is being conducted by research graduate, and so we have a series of webinars which go on, which are in that way informative and helpful for PhD students across India as well as across the globe. So please feel free to connect to this webinar and get as much source of information as possible. So we have question and answer session at the end of the webinar, and we will be having sufficient time in which we will be answering the queries of clients. So uh, in that way, all of your concerns related to this topic of review paper writing will also be addressed. So today's topic is interesting because review paper writing is one of the most wanted aspects in the field of research publications. Many of them want to have review papers written, get them published, because it adds a lot of credibility to their future perspectives in terms of growth in the field, and to proceed further and become either professors, assistant professors to professors. So taking this into consideration, that it is very important aspect in anyone's career, we have prepared the presentation for review paper writing, and today we will be conducting the webinar on review paper writing. So sit down, relax, and try to understand the information that is being presented here. And once you get the information, then you can have all your questions relevant to that could be answered at the end of this presentation. So I hope that you find this presentation to be interesting as well as exciting, because it will be really helpful for people, those who are upbudding scientists, to that's how to write the review papers, how you have to go about working out with them, and getting out a successful review paper return that is easily acceptable. So we will be considering various aspects associated with it, and we will be going in pretty much detail about all the aspects that are associated and surrounded with review paper writing, and we will do a lot of details. So in that way, that multiple aspects which are associated with review paper writing will be covered, and we try to cover as much as possible. However, one point which is important to be noted here, it will be is a general webinar on how to write review papers. We will be covering some of the specific topics here, but it will not be particular to only one topic of how to write and how to do it, because of participants in the webinar will be from different areas. So we need to cater to all of them, and hence we will be doing a broader perspective, and any questions which you have in specific can be put forth in the question and answer session, and we will be more than happy to cover them and work it out. So even before we proceed, starting with the webinar on review paper writing, we would like to first introduce ourselves and explain as who are we and that we are and where we are based on. So Research Graduate is the best PhD and master's consulting company. Now, this company is particularly involved in helping research scholars all over the world with any aspect related to paper publication, thesis writing, dissertations, or literature reviews. Now, these are the following aspects that will be covered in Research Graduate. We do topic selection. We help you with proposal writing, review paper writing, research paper writing, thesis writing, master's dissertation, statistical analysis, and with editing, proofreading, and formatting. It could be any aspect associated. Like these are the broader ones which we have said, but any of the related ones to this also we will be helping the researchers worldwide. So we here at Research Graduate we have people who are experienced and expertise in various of these areas, and they are pretty helpful in that way for this. So may it be anything related to writing the various chapters of the thesis or master's dissertation, or it could be that you want us to develop a complete review paper or a research paper. We are here and helpful to do it for you. If you have already returned the paper but you want it to be corrected so that it comes into the format of the publishable journal, we are here to do the editing, proofreading, and formatting as well. So in that way we can help you out with any of the aspects that are required. And it's not necessary that some clients do not want the complete thesis or complete paper to be written, but only parts of it to be written. We can also help you out with that. So we do a broad range of services which cover the various topics which have been mentioned, and in that way we will be pretty much helpful for any researcher throughout the world, and we can get the works done for you, and we ensure you that the work done is of utmost quality and it will be satisfactory to the client, because ultimately the purpose of the client is either to publish it or to get it done as the thesis, and we will ensure that it matches with the way the client wants it, and we will do the respective we will finish the drafts first, give it to the client. If they are revisions, we will do them, we'll finish them, and we will give you. So in that way the participants here as well as into any other students who wish to get their work done do not have to worry. We will help you with all the revisions, and we will ensure that the draft that has been produced is finally successful and it works out in the way it has to be, so that it matches with the supervisors as well as with the all other concerned people. Now, these, as you can see here, research graduate, you can contact us by this email ID info@researchgraduate.com. We have our WhatsApp or phone number which has been shared on the screen. There is a dedicated website for this, so which is researchgraduate.com. So please feel free to contact us at either of the methods. We will come back to you. We will try to understand what are your queries. We will suggest the best options available for it, and we will work it out in a most ideal fashion and get the things done for you so that the end result is satisfactory. So please contact us and get your works done. So this webinar is being conducted on the behalf of Research Graduate, and thus any details pertaining to the webinar, if there are any aspects which you do not understand or you don't get with and you have queries further part of it and you are not in a position to get them done now, you can write back to us and we will be helping you out appropriately with the queries. So please feel free to contact us and get back with your queries, either for the webinar or for any of the related aspects, and we will work out and we will come back to you. So ultimately, it's important that the participants and the clients find it satisfactory. So, having said that, um, let us start now with the live webinar on how to do the review paper writing. So, now this is the outline. This is the outline for what I'm going to present today on review paper writing. Now, before we start with the review paper writing, it is essential that we understand what is research publication and why exactly we have to do a research publication. What is the necessity for it to be done? Then we cover about different types of research publications that we have. And it will be a brief aspects of different types of research publications in which we will be introducing about review papers. Once we come to this basic introduction on review papers, we go ahead and present about different kinds of review papers that you have and that are published worldwide in different journals. Then we talk about the various steps that are involved in review paper writing, and we dissect out each of the step and present it in detail. The first one being introduction to the literature review for writing the paper. Then the various aspects associated with the literature review, like how do you approach for the literature review, how do you search, how do you read the literature, what are the various components associated with literature review, how do you search for it, how do you manage once you get the data, complete literature, and how you analyze it. So it forms one bulk of the whole thing, which we will be discussing in detail. Then once we have the literature review in hand, then we talk of how to write review article, and we talk of the various details which are associated with it. So in that we talk about the topic selection, how we do it, then what is the research strategy that is followed while writing the paper, and then the body of research, that is the body of the review paper work, how it is organized. So you have introduction, the body of the work, and the conclusion. And then we have references, how we do it out and how we work it out, and important tips for writing review articles and the basic steps you have to consider. So in today's complete webinar, we will be covering till the fact that you write the review paper, you get it corrected, and you keep it ready for publication. So we will be doing a webinar till there, and we will be finishing it there. Okay, so now let us start with what exactly is a research publication. Now, a research publication is a scientific proof or evidence for the work that is done by a researcher. Now, any researcher who works in his or her field, it is essential that it has to be put forth towards the scientific community. And this work needs to be put forth to the scientific community for multiple reasons. One, because it helps to spread the knowledge which has been gathered by researcher to the scientific community. Then it's a means of expanding the scope of the present knowledge, telling that yes, the field is known till here. Now we are expanding it further and saying that this is also feasible. So in that way, we are talking of newer ideas that will be available for future work. Then publication is one of the means by which you advertise yourself. You gain recognition by publication. If that particular publication is of immense importance, then you will get a lot of what do you call citations for it, and you will be recognized thoroughly. So it's a main means by which researcher gains recognition in the scientific community. Thus, this is a piece of art in the form of a scientific writing, which is very essential so that people can understand it, appreciate it, and maybe that more people can come back to you and get the tips and evidences how to proceed ahead further. So, why to publish is an important question. As said, now here, as quoted here, researchers should always consider ethical concerns on scientific research. Now, you are doing a research. That doesn't mean that you are doing the research in the correct manner, following the protocols that are required and based on how it needs to be done. So, therefore, it is essential that researchers should always disseminate the data that they have, so that public understand what exactly is going on and how it is going on. Now, scientists also need to discuss issues surrounding their research with those who are concerned, so that it will become easy for them in order to understand as how it is and what is going on. So that's the reason why we need to do research publication, so that the data is spread out. You get both the pros and cons which are associated with it, and we understand it. Now, as I can see, some of the participants do have some questions. So please do not worry about it, as all the questions will be answered at the end in the question answer session. So you just focus on the presentation, and you can have all the questions being asked at the later part. So that's the reason why we do a research publication, so that we get to know both the negative and the positive aspects associated with the research. And then, does the scientific community accept it or it does not accept it? Because if they are grave concerns which needs to be addressed, then in that case, it is very important that you have to see why your publication has been like this, and hence how you can change it out so that it is much more acceptable. Now, having said that, now if you go back and look at any of the journals and internationally which publish papers, they are different kinds of research publications. Now, they include full length research papers, you have short communications, you have conference proceedings, letters to editors, clinical trials and case studies, perspectives, opinions and commentary, book reviews, and review articles. Now, these are the most common ones. However, there might be some others also which are specific, to those particular journals, but I have only covered the most common ones which are seen. So we will be covering each of this in order to understand what they are, and then we come to the introduction on review articles and how we go about with it. Now, when we talk of a research paper, yes, so research paper is a publication of the original research work that is done. Say you are doing a large number of experiments, you are validating the data, and after validating the data, you're working out on publishing it. Now, that exactly is a research paper. So you first analyze the literature, you propose a question, then you do various experiments which are associated with it. Then you come down to the logical conclusions which are associated with it. You interpret and conclude them. Now, that is where exactly is a research paper. As you can see here in the graphic that is depicted, that scientific or a research paper can be dissected into 7 major parts, which include the introduction. After the introduction, you have the literature review. Then you particularly have the hypothesis, the methods that you do follow for the hypothesis, and then you propose the results, discussion, and conclusion. So it is in general a complete method which is followed and which is done. And hence, a research paper is like a complete idea of one's thesis as how it has been done and how it has been worked out. Then another class of publications that you have include short communications. Short communications are like a very abridged or shortened versions of research paper. Now, many a times it happens that you have data with you and you want to publish it, but it does not go for a full length research paper, in which cases the journal itself suggests that you can go for short communications. Any journal has short communications aspect with them. They are precise and they are informative in nature. So when data is not sufficient, you go for this and you publish it. However, one thing to be remembered when you write short communications is you don't have elaborate materials, methods, discussion, results, and all those. Everything put together, all the major headings which are present in a research paper are clubbed together and written as one short communication. Usually, short communications typically don't exceed more than 2000 words. So, what has been shown here is a depiction of plant nomenclature short communication. Every journal has short communications which can be opted. If you want to publish your data that it is really good and you do not want to miss it out, then you could go ahead and you can publish it as a short communications. Then you have conference proceedings. Conference proceedings are published separately. Now, unlike the classic research articles, they do not have all the details in such way. Now, these are specifically like internationally and nationally, a large number of conferences happen for a very specific topic, like how it has been shown onto the right in the graphic here. It's a conference on industrial engineering, so a large number of speakers attend it and they proceed ahead. They publish the abstracts and then they present the conferences, speak, or they have the posters and related ones in the conferences. So conference proceedings was started by many of the journals in order to summarize the entire thing for the people who cannot attend it. So they are related to a similar topic or subject. They are not like regular research papers in the way they are published. They are published very separately. Then you have letter to editor. Now, many times people do not understand the difference between a letter to editor as well as between the research articles. A letter to editor is not a research article. Also, that a letter to editor, the problem here is that they are nothing but reanalysis of a published article. If the author has already published that article and he wants to highlight it, he can put it in a letter to editor, or author can put articles of interest as letter to editor in cases he wants to highlight that particular topic. It is not a full length article. It is just one page, and that too briefly for few of the 200 to 300 words is what a letter to editor is. And so you have a letter to editor, which is like a brief and concise summary of some of the highlighted papers which are presented. Then you have clinical trials and case studies. Now, clinical trials are highly specific, even case studies for that. These are usually published in medical field and they are of utmost importance. They are like full-length papers. However, the difference here is these are the data which are collected directly from human subjects. Since they are collected from human subjects, they have got a lot of significance associated with them. So thus clinical trials at any given time when published have the highest impact factor associated with them. They are written in very high standards by professional people. Clinical trials are usually not written by academicians, but they are written by medical researchers, and these are pertaining to very specific subjects, and they are primary research like research articles, but they differ in the way they are written and in the way they are analyzed. Then you have another distinctive part. There are three aspects many of the journals publish, which are called as perspectives, opinions, and commentaries. They are very similar to one another, but however, they are very minor differences. Some of the journals do not accept opinions and commentaries, they only accept perspectives. And so that is the way in which people understand as how it is. So, perspective usually is a view about a particular topic which is written in a journal. It will be related to a large number of published papers or related to published fundamental concepts in the field. They are usually related to one specific topic. They are not more than 2000 words. Opinion articles are viewpoints of the author which are related to a specific study. Such articles often give the advantages and disadvantages of that particular study that is being analyzed. Opinion articles are shorter, usually they are 1000 words or so. Commentaries are much shorter articles. Here, in case of commentaries, you will be evaluating the paper, book, or related report, and you will be then presenting it out as your particular view. So each of the journal has its own components for perspective, opinion, and commentary. All of them do not publish the three. Some publish perspectives, some publish opinions, and some publish commentaries. In that way, it is like you have to check up with the journal if you want to publish any of these. Then we have book reviews. Probably these are the easiest of all to write, and they are short articles and less time consuming for publication. Book reviews, as the quote says in the graphic, they are very effective in spreading the word about a good book. Now, nothing sells better than a review for the book. If the review is already positive, then more people would love to buy it or read it online by subscribing for it. They are mostly published in academic journals. They are published to evaluate and give opinions on the recently published books. And in that way, book reviews are short, precise, and highly useful. Now, then we come to the main aspect, the review articles. Having given you the preface, review articles are one of the most important ones, and these are the topic that we are going to discuss in detail today. They summarize the current understanding of a given topic. Reviews are not research papers, they are summaries of research papers. Now, you have thousands of research papers which are published on a particular topic. For example, if we consider treatment of cancer with a specific drug, then in that case, you have so many articles on it. And so, usually, a researcher gets fed up reading those many articles and trying to understand how these articles are and what they are. So we write a review in order to summarize the various articles that have been published in order to say whether the drug has an effect or no effect on cancer treatment. They are often what are termed as survey articles, which is an apt statement which or apt point which is given to them. Review articles, as the caption says. For example, here as you can see that it says like you want to upgrade the tablet or you want to buy a new Android in the simplest terms, then in that case you have to review in the market to see which are the best Android phones or tablets which are available, which one can be used. So you collect the entire aspects and then you use it. So that is how is the concept of review article starts, and it proceeds ahead accordingly with it. So when we start with review articles, yes. So why write a review paper? Now, as I was telling, review papers are the most popular of all the research publications that happen. Review papers offer a critical evaluation of published literature. Since they offer a critical evaluation of the published literature, that is the reason why they are considered to be superior to all other publications. They offer extensive review of already existing literature in the topic. Review papers help in identifying the gaps which are existing in the study. Like we work on there, as I said, there are so many research publications, but if someone wants to get a summary of the entire thing, you do not know how to do it. So there you go and read the review paper. A properly written review paper should give you an idea of what are the research gaps that arise out of the studies that have been published till now. What is the future work that can be done? So review papers offer what you call perspective and a newer approach that could be utilized for future research. Of all the research publications, review papers are the ones which are most highly cited. As can be seen here, like the impact factor basis. Now, impact factor, for to be in brief, is it is nothing but a calculative evidence of how well a particular paper or a publication is cited, and that usually is calculated over for a 3 to 4 year period. You have impact factor for journals as well as you have impact factor for the papers that are published, which will be based on the number of citations for the particular paper and others that are done. So here when you do the comparison of impact factor for say letters, full papers as well as reviews, you can very clearly see that over a period of time from 0 to 10 years, review papers have the maximum impact factor as which is been outlined here. Letters have the lowest, full papers do have, but review papers have the highest impact factor. And since review papers have the highest impact factor, they are the most sought after. They are the most sought after ones. So if you can successfully publish a review paper, then you will have that being cited for a very long time, and then you will have a very good recognition based on it. So, having said that, now let us proceed to see what are the different kinds of review papers that you have and different kinds of review articles that you have. Now, the total circle which is represented here is for all the literature reviews. Of all the literature reviews you have, bulk of them go for traditional or narrative literature reviews, which means that you write a complete compilation of the literature published and you comment on it. Then a small but significant fraction of it, which accounts for almost like 10%, goes for systematic literature reviews. Systematic literature reviews are very specific. They are for a particular topic, and they are usually written for, to address specific populations or groups. They are very popular in medical fields. And a small subgroup of systematic literature review is meta-analysis. Both of them are overlapping. You can have either systematic reviews which are published, or you can have systematic reviews with so-called meta-analysis in them, which are published as such. So we are going to look at each of them and try to understand what they are, how they are, and how you go about with it. So first, let us speak about traditional literature reviews. Traditional literature review is the complete compilation of the literature in a particular topic. For example, if I am saying that the effect of weather on the kind of allergies which people get, so that means it's a huge thing. You are talking of the weather contribution in allergy generation in people. So you collect all the papers associated with it. Then you collect the various weather parameters like humidity, temperature, the what do you call, whether it is too hot, too cold, and all other fluctuations which are associated for the particular topic. And then you collect all the papers. Then, based on that, you do a comprehensive overview of the topic, and then you highlight the significant areas of research. So, it helps in identification of research gaps and in framing appropriate research question. So, thus, it is a traditional literature review. This will be quite long, usually between 5 to 10,000 words are traditional literature reviews which are written. They are long and they take very long time to be made. One important point that needs to be remembered by the participants is review topics cannot be written overnight nor can be published, within a month's time. They take a lot of time, hard work, and effort to prepare and to make them. So it needs months to do literature review, collect it, make an overview, then write the paper and then get it published. So one needs to have a lot of patience while doing the review article writing, and hence it's essential that you understand that this is a very slow process and you go with it appropriately. So having spoken about the traditional literature review, then we come to different kinds of other reviews. Now, here you have an important aspect about traditional literature review. Now, quality is the most important aspect in traditional literature review. The quality includes parameters such as the breadth, depth, rigor, and consistency, clarity, brevity, and effectiveness. Rather, in specific to say, it should have covered the whole thing in deep. It should have a proper literature review being done. Then there should be consistency in what's written, and it should be effective, and it should make a very productive sense or while when you have done it. And hence, traditional literature reviews have so much of significance. The second kind of reviews which we have are what are called as scoping reviews. As you can see here, it is they are similar to systematic reviews, but they are written in an abridged form. Scoping reviews are often used by many of the publishers as well as by government bodies to take vital decisions. Policy making, research, and practice, where it has to be done fast, particularly in policy making, scoping reviews have a very good idea. So there is no limit on the amount of material you use. The main purpose is to find all the material on the topic concerned. So you collect the material, you identify the gaps, and then you provide a concise summary so that policymakers can go ahead with it. So then you come to systematic reviews. Probably the most important of all in review writing is systematic reviews. They are a systematic analysis of the data. You follow specific protocols here to analyze the data which is already published. So it's one method which is repeated for the various literatures. Now, mostly done in medical fields, it helps in identification, evaluation, and summarizing the findings corresponding to each of the individual studies. The data is highly reliable since it is from human subjects, and it involves multiple studies and a rigorous analysis which is done, based on which you frame the conclusions which are free of errors. A systemic review, once published, is considered like a biblical reference for many of them, and hence they are not that easily accepted by journals, and they need a lot of time to write because it involves a lot of analysis in itself. So here, as said, why write a systematic review? As said here, systematic reviews critically appraise and synthesized best evidence. So it is the best critic for a particular topic. It will analyze the pros and cons of the entire thing, and then it will pass conclusion statements. The conclusion statements that are passed in a systemic review are very strong, and they summarize the entire literature for that topic, and hence have to be drafted very carefully. But one thing to be remembered, your system, the systematic review that you write depends on the kind of literature that you use. If the literature is not a good one or it's not of great quality, the systematic review falls off and might not be accepted. Then we have meta-analysis. Meta-analysis is a subset in systematic review. It involves statistical softwares for analyzing the data. You identify specific parameters, you extract out the parameters from the published papers, and then you go ahead and you do the meta-analysis. It is a quantitative formal study, as aptly written and said here. Most of the meta-analysis is done for clinical trials. Now, well, the participants might have a question. If we are already doing systematic analysis, why do systematic review? Why do we need meta-analysis? Systematic review doesn't do any statistical analysis. It is more broad, whereas meta-analysis does statistical parameter evaluation, and it narrows down and gives you the trend that is possible, give that is being observed in the given population. So it as said, it has a more precise estimate of the effect whatever is there, and and it increases the chance of generalizing the effect in a given population, and hence systematic reviews combined with meta-analysis are the most wanted ones in biological fields. Okay, now this is a comparison between scoping review and systematic review to get an idea of it. Includes meta-analysis in most of the cases. Now, scoping, in case of scoping review, the research question is broad. You do not worry too much about the quality of the data and others. You are more here to identify the research gaps which are existing, and you suggest what is the best thing that is seen and what are the gaps that are existing. It is not quantitative, but it is only qualitative. Unlike that, systematic reviews are highly focused. Quality of the data is important. You have inclusion and exclusion criteria being considered when you are doing systematic reviews. It has quantitative aspects, and it answers very specific questions. It is not generalized like a scoping review, and hence it becomes very important to know the difference between these two before you start writing it. Then the next one that you have are called Cochrane reviews. These are systematic reviews which are published by Cochrane database. They are the most cited and most valuable in the field. They are very valuable for policymakers as well as for people in healthcare. They are written based on the protocols which are given by the Cochrane handbook, and accepting in a Cochrane database for a systematic review is like a big achievement for any particular researcher. So, what is so special about Cochrane reviews that makes them, so wanted? Because they are unbiased. You can easily see that it is written in such a way that there is no bias which can be expected. They are highly reliable because it goes through a lot of systematic screening, only based on which you can conclude and publish these reviews. They are up to date with the literature and they are highly accessible. So there is a well-defined protocol which is used here to write, and that's why Cochrane reviews are so special. Then, apart from Cochrane reviews, you have rapid reviews. Now, as the name itself suggests, rapid reviews are prepared and published within 5 weeks. They are fast. They are written so that for decision making and for people who are sitting in government organizations for policy making, they need a very fast review. Systematic reviews with meta-analysis need long time for publication. Usually when you are taking important decisions, you don't have so much time, so they are published fast, rapidly, within 5 weeks. It omits many of the stages associated with systematic review, thus making it less rigorous. Used in emerging topics, updates on previous topics. The best example is right now the corona pandemic. When policymakers have to take decisions, you will have a lot of reviews, rapid reviews on COVID-19, which help them to take decisions fast so that the vaccinations can be done or not. Then the next one is umbrella reviews. Now, when we say, as the name itself suggests, umbrella review is a review of reviews. In a particular given topic, you collect all the reviews written and then you write a master overview of the reviews. Now, when you have a large number of reviews which are suggesting both positive and negative aspects associated with the topic, you club all of them and then you pass a final conclusion. So this will be very helpful for many of the people when they have a broad A topic and they want to decide what exactly they need to do. Any umbrella review contains three features: the characteristics of the topic and what has been said, then the strengths and weakness associated with the topic as published in the field. Then you have Campbell Collaboration. It's like a Cochrane database. Campbell Collaboration again is a non-profit organization mainly involved in decision and policy making by conducting systematic reviews. They work on broad areas which include justice, science, international development, knowledge transition. They publish systematic reviews, method-based papers, evidence, and gap maps. And hence, this is another useful and better method which has been considered for publication. Then you have integrative reviews. An integrative review, as the name suggests, makes both qualitative and quantitative methods. Systematic analysis of available literature is done for qualitative part. Then you club it with the data that you have to see if it matches with the review, and then you conclude and publish it. So that's you write an integrative review. So, thus generalizing, these are the various kinds of reviews that you have for many of the journals. And here, if you can see the level of confidence which is seen in the field for different reviews, narrative reviews have the lowest and full systematic reviews have the highest level of confidence, because a full systematic reviews are based on human subjects and they are based on live trials. So they have more significance. I have put in a relative comparison for the various reviews based on four parameters: speed, methodological detail, risk of bias, and comprehensiveness. Narrative reviews have the lowest of all. Now, the narrative review depends on how fast you want to publish. As you go to systematic reviews, they become very slow. Methodological details are hardly any in narrative reviews, with maximum in systematic reviews. The risk of bias is highest because the one person who is writing narrative review can only collect the papers he wants where his ideas match and publish it, whereas in systematic reviews it's highly decreased. And systematic reviews are far more comprehensive when compared to narrative reviews, because it is dependent on the author when the narrative review writes it out. So in that way, the most highlighted ones are systematic reviews with or without meta-analysis. So now let us come to overview of review article writing. how do we do it? These are the essential points which have been listed out. Most important is you need literature review to be done if you want to write the review article. Then you need to develop a topic, get the particular keywords, develop the idea, collect the whole data, make notes and conclusions. Then you develop a framework for review and write the review. Once you draft the review, then you edit, correct, and make it suitable for publication. Now, this is the overview of how to do the review article writing. We will be, focusing on each of them, with the first step being the focus on literature review. Now, as aptly shown here, this is a general outline. As you can see, first you need to conduct a thorough literature survey. Then you come to state your problem statement. Then you include the details. Then you mention the various aspects. Then you finalize it, and then you go for publishing it. The most important step here being that you have to have a literature survey done first. So we are going to focus on how to do literature review for review article writing. Now, literature review is nothing but the collection of various papers which have been published by other researchers in the given field. Now, it is most vital step which helps in framing the research paper. It helps in creating the defined ideas based on the available network of data. It has to be done in a systematic and organized manner so that you can get a powerful conclusion about it. Now, to write a review, it is important that you collect the literature review and generate a perfect idea, without which it's impossible that you can write the review as such. So, and hence literature review becomes very important in the whole process. Now, the importance of literature review is being shown here in this 6 key points. It provides the interpretation of the existing literature. Then it helps in calculating the impact of latest information. So it tells you like how the latest information, what kind of an impact it has, how much it is being cited out. Then the various arguments and counter arguments existing related to a particular topic will be brought out in case of literature review. Then it identifies the research gaps. It helps in understanding the current positioning of the given topic in a particular field with respect to other topics, and it provides information on relevancy and coherency. So, should I go pick it up or should I not use it? And hence, literature review plays a very important role in such a way. Now, these are the 6 major points which have to be considered when you are doing literature review. Now, when evaluating a particular literature, look for its originality and look for its credibility. Whether the paper that you are trying to read, is it correct to read it? Is it related that you can read it? What is the objective which the author is mentioning? What are the various arguments which are being put forth, and what is the significance or contribution of this particular work in a particular given field? All these aspects have to be covered clearly. So evaluate these out and then only you work it out when you are doing the literature review. Then what is the approach for literature review? Now you need to ask specific questions when you are doing the literature review, which include what is the topic that you want to search on? What are the key questions that we are trying to address? What is the search criteria? Now I go ahead and I want to search it out. What is the criteria? What do I use for searching? Then the relevance of papers that you have collected. Are they relevant to the field in which I want to write, or do they not have any relevance at all? Identify the appropriate research material. You have to collect the papers. You have to write the conclusions. Now, that is what has been summarized in the graphic there as the questions that you ask. Like the same thing have been said are put forth in the graphic also simultaneously. Then, when doing literature review, what exactly do you consider for doing the literature review? Now, the whole literature that is published in journals is put forth into 3 parts. One, primary literature, another secondary literature, and third is tertiary literature. Primary literature, as the name says, is direct publications of your experiments, results, data, conclusions. It includes mainly the various publications that have been done. It's the original research that is published, or the thesis that is published, or the conference proceedings which you have, and others. Secondary literature is written based on primary literature, and that's where review articles are secondary literature, and books also come under it. Tertiary literature is where the whole summary is done of the entire thing, and you generalize and you present it out. And when you talk of tertiary literature, they mostly include textbooks as well as encyclopedias and handbooks, because they have generalized summary which is available and which is done. So in that way, it goes ahead and it works it out. So you need to pick up the all the kinds of literatures, and you have to see which one is that which you are going to use, and which one is it that which you are going to work out with. Now, what is the various what you need to cover in the literature is again another important point. Now, background material relevant to the topic needs to be covered. It could be a direct evidence or it could be indirect evidence, as it says. So, any literature which is closely related to the topic, which talks about the topic, or anything which directly talks about the topic, you have to. In some cases, you will have papers and others which implicate the concept, but they do not talk anything beyond that. So such ones are not considered, such ones can be considered depending on if it has got specific association or not. Then we have searching strategy. Now, many a times when you are doing literature review, people are often lost how to search. Now, here is what is shown here. Collection, when I say, is huge. You have books, you have articles, you have journals, you have papers, you have thesis, then you have news articles, then library cataloged articles, handbooks, conference proceedings, all of them. Now collect everything possible that you can in the searching strategy. Now, when you come to searching strategy, now this is how it is. When you start literature review for your review article with a specific topic, first you'll collect a lot of papers. For example, if I give in a keyword like cancer therapy, I will get 1,000 papers. But do the 1,000 papers mean that I'm going to write a review of the 1,000 of them? No. You start with the broad one for the 1,000, then you proceed ahead. Your keyword is you are looking for a specific drug in cancer therapy. Then you eliminate all the papers where only the name of the drug is mentioned but nothing else is mentioned. So then you come to the papers where the drug has been specifically used and worked out. So as you can see from the pyramidal representation, the bottom is the most general one. As you keep on filtering, you come to field specific papers, ultimately landing in maybe 100 to 150 papers which are needed for your work. So that is how the search strategy needs to be done. So when you go to the search strategy, you first need to define the topic. What is the topic that you're working on? The scope and boundary of the search, which is important. Then you draft keywords that help in searching. Now you have to have limits when you're using the keywords. Too many keywords will broaden the whole thing and you get out too many non-specific papers. You set limitations for the search, then make a list of sources or databases from where you can obtain the information. Determine the time frame for which you need to do this. And then you work it out accordingly. Based on the kind of review you are writing, as how I have said, if you have less time, then you need to do it fast. If you have a lot of time, you can do it slowly. Now, searching alone is not the point. Even the reading strategy is important. I have so many articles. How do I read it? You already have prior knowledge of the topic. Utilize it while reading. You first read and reread the articles and try to evaluate what they are saying. Then you try to utilize your prior knowledge and club with it to see what exactly is the outcome that is coming out. What are the various questions that they have raised and they have answered? What are the conclusions from the paper and inferences from the paper? Now, that is how the reading strategy goes on, and that is how it needs to be done. Now here is the reading comprehension strategy which has been put forth in a simplified manner from internet. Now you first reread the text, you club it with the prior knowledge you have, then you use clues to understand the entire thing, then you infer, then you locate the keywords, use the words in that particular thing and get out the whole data and draw the inferences. In many times when you are doing reading, it's important that you visualize and you do organize the data. And when you visualize and you try to do graphical organization, you will get out very beautifully as what exactly they are saying. Try to be more creative when you read the reviews, literature reviews, so that you can get out with what you want. Then the components of literature review include the background information. Okay, now the background information will include the introduction to the topic, the scope and organization of the topic, past and the present literature, and purpose of the study. All of this have to be covered in literature review so that it becomes easy for you to make notes from there. Now, this is in brief a summarization of the various steps of the literature review. First, you select the topic, you search. Once you search, you develop the argument, then you survey the literature, you criticize the literature, and then you write the review. So these basic steps have to be essentially followed when you are doing it out. Now that gets us to the big point. I have been talking of about you need to search the literature. What are the sources of literature? When you when you sit down to write for a review, you do not know because internet has so much. So what is that we need? Don't get confused. Don't get tense. There are methods by which we can do it and work it out. So the sources of literature include academic libraries, all libraries, academic, public, government, national libraries, special collections, and then you have commercial organizations and databases which could be utilized. Apart from them, you have various tools online available if in case you can't go and get them. Nowadays, usually people don't do that, so they do it online. So you have library catalogs, subject indexes, subject abstracts, bibliographies, encyclopedias, and internet databases and search engines. Other one which are useful includes research journals themselves, research articles, thesis, publications, conference papers, monographs, and trade literatures. It's actually beyond the scope to talk because there are so many sources of literature. These are the most widely covered and used ones, and hence it should not be a problem when you're working out with it. Then I am going to talk briefly about the most commonly used web sources for picking up the literature. The first one which comes into mind of anyone is PubMed. It's a most widely used search engine. It is a part of NCBI, or the the National Consortium for Research, which you have NCI. Most of the published articles have an ID in PubMed, and all of them are linked to PubMed. You can search and retrieve the articles you want by using keywords as shown here. You type in the PubMed, you type the keyword, and you will get a list of articles associated with it. And it also shows when you click on the article, it will show whether it's freely accessible or it needs to be purchased. Okay, so that is how it is done. So here, like as can be seen here, this when you click on a specific paper, you get all the details, including its PubMed ID, and here it shows PMC full text as highlighted in the red here. If it is a full text, you can download it. Otherwise, it will say it needs that particular paper needs to be purchased. So you'll just get the abstract and you will use it. The next one, which is used widely, is Google Scholar. Now, Google Scholar is a very specific Google Scholar is very specific internet engine Google has developed it, because in Google, when you type for scientific terms, you get too much, or sometimes you don't get much. So you go to Google Scholar and then you give it, it becomes very specific and is very user friendly. It includes all peer reviewed journals, books, conference papers, preprints, abstracts, and technical reports. It's freely accessible. Then the next one which you have apart from Google Scholar is Mendeley. Probably most of the participants here might have idea about it. It is a reference organizer. It helps not only to download the papers with abstracts and full text if possible, but will also help in organizing the references. It is connected to all major publication databases such as PubMed and others, and hence you can get it done. Mendeley is a freely available software which can be downloaded. Only you need to register. That's the only thing that is required. Then this is how the Mendeley outline looks as shown here. So you have the papers list and organization list which comes up in your computer. It can be pinned to Excel sheets or to any others automatically. Then you have Ovid. Ovid probably is something which is more common with clinicians and less with researchers and students. It has connection to thousands of peer-reviewed articles, books, conferences, proceedings, and others. But license for Ovid needs to be purchased. It is not freely available. Then you have ProQuest, which is like Ovid again. It is an American company that helps researchers by providing access to journals, articles, conference proceedings, government documents. ProQuest is subscribed annually for usage, and for academic purposes, ProQuest is available at as low price as $30. Then the most widely, this is how the ProQuest one looks for, and you can get all the details with the papers and others. And then you have Scopus. Probably most of the participants who are here today know about it. It is Elsevier's citation and abstraction database. Free version of Scopus is available. Scopus is not just alone for getting the data. It is also helpful in connecting with academia, industry, and government organizations. It has connection to thousands of journals. The only disadvantage is some of them are not Scopus indexed, so your literature review might be incomplete in such a way. This is how the Scopus web page looks with once you download it and you have all the details coming up. Then comes the next part. Okay, now I have searched using any of this, got all the literature. It will be like so many papers, 100, 150 papers. How do I manage them? You need to organize it. For organizing, we have what are called as literature managers. They are softwares which are available for doing it. The most common ones include EndNote, Zotero, and Mendeley. Mendeley we have already discussed. EndNote and Zotero are similar to Mendeley. Free version of EndNote and Zotero are available for limited time, but you have to buy them after a point, and that's available for academicians at low price. Now, once you have it, the beauty of all this is that once you have the references and you want to publish in a journal, they have the option for clicking on like which journal is needed, and they will format the references in the format of the journal. You just need to export them into MS Word and you have to just use it. And so they are very user friendly in such a way. Now this is an example of an EndNote which is shown here. The literature references, then you have the keywords which have been here. Then you automatically have the link for PDF along with all the details for the reference along with abstract, and if you want the full paper, you click on it and you will get the full paper from there. Similar is the case with Zotero, and what is shown here in Zotero is a latest update. If a particular paper or work is retracted, it shows with the various reasons why it has been retracted, and so it cannot be considered. Now, okay, once you manage the literature review effectively and work it out, now what next? You have to analyze. This is the most important part. Analysis of literature review is probably the one which takes maximum time, because you have to reach every article you have to read, you have to understand, and you have to figure out. You can grade the various literatures as ones out which are the most important, ones which are less important. Most important ones are the ones where in which you have all the work included. The less important ones are the ones where they have been used for confirming, but they have not been directly used in many of the studies. So make notes of the each read material, summarize the key findings, extract out the critical points or arguments, get out with the conclusions and evidences they have made. You understand and interpret each paper carefully. So what I would suggest is read the paper, get out with the key points, make the conclusions. Like that, read all the papers and get out with conclusions and make the point. So like this, if you have to make for 100 papers, it's going to take time, and hence, it will be important that you have to have a lot of patience when you are doing this. Now, reading critically and analytically, these are the 5 basic aspects: your observation related to the reading, your analysis skills, your inference, and the way you get out with communications from the paper, and you sort out what you want. And hence, it's important that you use your critical and analytical reading skills when you are doing the literature review and get out with whatever is required. Now, so the key takeaways from literature review are these. You have to cite all the studies related to specific research area. You have to select and synthesize arguments to create a new idea. You have to clearly understand the topic that you're proposing, and you have to do assessment of strengths and weakness of already proposed theories. And please remember that when you are doing literature review, do not collect papers which are very old. Don't go usually beyond 20 years. Sometimes references, journals have issues if you cite very old papers. Try to collect recent publications, and if for writing review articles, if you have recent reviews, also there is no problem. You can make your own thing and you can work it out. Then that gets us to the point. Okay, I have done the literature review. Now, how to write a review article? Now, this is the key part which we are going to focus now and work out with it. Now, there are so many aspects associated with writing a review article, which include: A. Topic selection. B. Research strategy. C. Organizing the content, which includes the organizing the introduction, body of review, discussion, conclusion, and references. We are going to discuss each of this in detail and try to understand what exactly are we trying to say here. Now, first comes the topic selection. So when we talk of topic selection is tricky. You can't just make a topic like that and work out with it. So we need a bit of brainstorming here. So first make a topic which is broad one. Then you start working out on all the details. Then you can refine the topic. First choose the topic which interests you. Do the research, refine your topic, make it as a statement. Then you go through the entire literature review and then you refine till you get the final topic. As based on my experience, I would say that the topic first you frame and the final topic that you put for publishing the review article will be different, because it involves a lot of refining the topic and redefining it such that finally you get out with what you want. Now, here are the aspects associated with topic selection. As you can see, first you nominate a topic and develop it, then you refine the topic, and then goes for the systematic review. So following these steps you have to do. Though each of the steps I'm explaining looks simple, in practicality, when you start with, are not exactly that simple, because they take a lot of time. And then you have to keep reading, rereading, redefining everything till you get out in a format that is acceptable by any journal. Now, what is the research strategy? Now here, when we say what is the research strategy, how exactly you have gone about to collect the literature and how you are going to write the body of the review. For that, the strategy that you have followed will be important here. First, you identify and prioritize the most important articles. For each article, you write the title, read the abstract, identify whether it is suitable or not, summarize, criticize, draft the conclusions, and you get out a whole summary. In this way, you do for all the articles, get it out, and then you have had your research strategy done very successfully. Then next is the main body of review article, which has introduction. Now, introduction gives the background of the study. Why exactly are we doing the study? What is the purpose of doing it? What is the motivation? What is our question that we are trying to answer it? It typically is around 10 to 20%. Now, always remember, introduction should not have review of literature which comes in the later part, or it should not have methods, discussion, everything put together. Introduction is a separate and unique in its own way, so you have to give a proper priority when you are writing introduction. Typically, while writing the review paper, you don't write the introduction first, you write all other aspects and then you come to introduction and then you write it. Then we have the body of review. This is the core part of the review. It constitutes of around 90% of the total written material. You have to give the various methods that you follow for writing the review. You should have discussion on the models that you have developed and how it works out. You have to critically evaluate the various literature that you want to and justify based on it as how your idea will work out. And then you come to the next aspect, which happens out to be the discussion part. Now, body of review constitutes of 90% of the total review which you write, and hence the discussion is only like 5%, but discussion should be written clearly and concisely. Now, you have done the body of review and you have all the literature. Don't re-mention the whole literature, but the main takeaway from the literature is put forth in the discussion. The significant findings are outlined, extent up to which it supports the developed hypothesis or model is outlined, and then you finally conclude why exactly you are writing this and whether it has significance or not. This is typically around 5% of the total written part. Then you come to conclusion. Now, when you come to conclusion and writing the references, now conclusion will have answers to the question you have asked. For example, if while writing the literature review, my point is the utilization of a drug helps in curing the cancer, then am I saying that it will cure or am I saying it's not curing it? That has to be answered clearly. It's around 5% of the total written material. A list of references is made utilizing any of the reference managers. Usually, typically, it will be between 50 to 100 references. Sometimes journals don't even want 100 references. They would love to have lower than 100 and keep going on. However, exact number will be decided by the journals and you have to just follow that out. Now, with that, this is the general ideology that is followed for writing most of the review articles. However, in case of systematic reviews and meta-analysis, there are differences when you write them. So let us focus on those differences and let us try to understand what exactly we are planning to do at it and how we will do it out. So, in case of systematic review, you have to follow a defined method and you need to follow a defined, what you call, a protocol, which needs to be observed. So, you need to first mention what is your research question, what is that you plan to do. Then you have to give details pertaining to the methods that you are going to follow and how you are going to follow them. Then you conduct a literature review. You select all the studies which you have as per the protocol. Now collect all the studies and then you have to critically evaluate the studies. Whether this study has got any significance to the question or it doesn't have any significance to the question. You extract out the data based on this and then you analyze the results. So there are multiple steps thus in writing the systematic review as how it is said. Now here, this is what is the systematic literature review. Now first step is to formulate a clear, well-designed research question. Once you have formulated it, you have to write a protocol as how you are going to work out. Then you will do the literature search. After the literature search, you go for, screening and rescreening of the literature based on the methods that you have proposed. Then you do the data extraction. Once you do the data extraction from the, from the studies, you will be including the risk of bias assessment. And then you go further for the complete data analysis with or without meta-analysis. And then you assess the quality of it. it. That is what is called grading. Grading systematic reviews usually is done by different softwares, and they are available with either Cochrane or with any of the ones which I have mentioned, like Campbell Collaboration. They can grade and tell you how good is the systematic review and how it is. So based on which you will know how to do it out. Then you can generate a systematic review report and think or plan for publishing the report as such. Now, these are the various procedures that are followed for systematic literature review. Then, now, but if you are planning to do a meta-analysis along with systematic review, then there are multiple steps in it. First of all, in systematic review, you have identified a large number of literatures, but all the literature might not be suited for meta-analysis. How do you know whether it is suited or not? You will have a certain set of criteria or factors. Now let me explain you this as how it goes. Now, for example, if you are looking for the effect of drug on HIV treatment, in that case, you are looking for whether the drug works or not, and you want to do meta-analysis. Now, there are parameters like the age of the patient, the sex of the patient, whether male or female, and whether he has been on the drug before starting this evaluation or not, and if he has discontinued the drug and others. So there are like many of such parameters which are coming in here. These parameters have to be considered. Based on these parameters, first you make the parameters ready. Once you make the parameters ready and then you have worked it out, then you feed them and you code the papers based on the parameters. You classify and code the various studies based on the study groups design. Then you analyze the data by appropriate statistical software. You get out the data in a representable format. You export it out. You generate the report and you include these reports. Based on the report extraction and this which you have made, then you work out and give the probable conclusions which you get out from it. In that way, it is essential to consider the various of these steps when you are doing meta-analysis. Now, there are a large number of softwares which are used in meta-analysis. Let me give you an example of one which is called Rev Manager. There are even others. All these softwares, ideally what they do is you provide them with the data and they give you the statistical analysis and final interpretation in the form of funnel plots or in the form of forest plots. What has been shown here is a forest plot for impact of treatment on mortality. It also gives you the risk of bias. The risk of bias should be very low. So here on to the left, if you can see, it favors treatment. On to the right, it favors no treatment. So whether it's going on to the right or on to the left, based on this, if you see most of the plot is going more towards the left, which shows that it is favoring treatment rather than no treatment. So you have, this is just a representative example which I have used, but then that is how is the final thing which comes out in case of meta-analysis. So you have the forest plots or you have the funnel plots that can be used. And then you go ahead with them and then you finish it and you draw out the conclusions. So now, as I was saying, there is something in systematic analysis called risk of bias assessment. Now, this is crucial. As it says, are you doing the literature review in a biased manner or are you doing in a unbiased manner? If you are doing in a biased manner, then you are in trouble because then you are trying to make it the way you want it and not in a neutral manner. So we do this assessment of the risk by by different methods. There are three ways wherein which the bias can come, either because of individual components which have been used for analysis or the checklist or the scales. Now, Cochrane risk of bias tool is what is used for evaluating the risk of bias assessment. It helps us to understand if the literature has been missed from report, or like there are two aspects here. Whether we have not included a specific literature, we forgot to include it, so is the bias coming, or is the particular researcher wantedly doing the bias in reporting so that he can get out with what he wants. So that is how it will be helpful So to make an unbiased review article in systematic reviews. This is an example from the Cochrane one, which has been taken. Now, as you can see here, it's color coded. Where you have negative green, it is unbiased. Where you have question mark, it's not sure about the risk. And where it is red, there is high risk of bias. Each and every paper that is mentioned here goes out specifically with all this. So here, as you can see, that you have one paper which is from Khan, the other one from others which you have. So each of them, for each of the parameters which are shown here, it shows whether there's a risk or there is no risk and how you work it out. So in that way, it is possible that we can evaluate the bias assessment, and then if it is a biased one, then we'll remove that article and we'll use the other article. In that way, we know that we are publishing a unbiased article. Now, having said that, now there are some key takeaways which are important and which need to be understood for writing the review article. So the important steps for writing a review article is what I will be summarizing here. First, most important one is identifying the topic. First, develop a topic and then you narrow it down. The topic is the most important one here. Then apart from the topic is searching for the appropriate literature. Always remember that do not include non-specific literature in review articles. If it does not have what you want, then it is not needed. Many a times, researchers do not understand this very clearly, because when you are writing the review article, when you are collecting the literature, many of them have the keyword in the paper, but beyond that there is nothing. It is only just a word used somewhere in the whole paper, but it has not really been evaluated. Such papers are of no use for us. So you have to search for literature which is appropriate. Once you get the appropriate literature, then you refine the research topic and question based on the search. And that is how it goes. Then once you have the proper literature, you have refined the topic as well as the question, you have to read, evaluate, make critiques and conclude properly. The notes making is the most important thing. Now as an on you keep reading the literature, trying to go ahead with it, you will understand that your initial topic gets re-refined and you will have a proper idea. Based on the complete evaluation of literature, you will develop a title for the review article. Now, these are the key takeaways and the summaries for whatever I have presented. Now, once you have the appropriate literature, make a draft for writing the review article. First, give the title, give the various headings and subheadings you want to. Then you start filling in content into each of them. And as how I said, always write it in a reverse manner. Don't write the introduction first. First, write the body of the review, write the discussion, write the conclusion. Then you know what you can put in introduction, and then you write it out. Now, plan the content for each of the headings and subheadings accurately. If required, make the figures, graphs, and tables as per needed. But because review articles do not have so many of them, if you want to incorporate any of them, better be careful that you incorporate minimum number of them and they should be relevant. Unwanted tables and figures are not accepted in review articles. Then you draft the intro, body, discussion, and conclusion. You revise the citation. First, you write the citations, export them out, and then you revise them and re-revise them till it's more proper. Then once you have it done, submit the prepared version to the supervisor for corrections. Once you get out with the corrections, incorporate the corrections and develop the final version, which is ready for submission to the journal. So these are the key takeaways when you are writing a review article, and this is aptly summarized here in Mendeley. Now you have the research objective or the question. Now first have it, then you find keywords from there and you search the articles. So the first step is to search the articles. Then the second step is filter the articles for which are relevant and which are irrelevant. Then you organize them out. Once you have organized it out, then you go to the next step after organizing, which mainly includes what you call as the making further notes and points on it. Then you draft what is called as a critical framework for it, and then you write the review article. And once you have done it, you have the entire thing with you. Now, every of these circles, which is represented here, is interconnectable. For example, when you are reading and making critical evaluation, you might go back again to search for more articles, and then you can have, even when you are doing what do you call a critical framework body, when you are making for the review writing, you can go back again and look for what you have read and points you have made. And here again, when you have made the final version of it, you can again go back and look at these. So most of these are intertwinable and interrelatable, and hence it is useful. Then we have basic steps which have to be considered when you are writing the review article. Now, this is important because you have to know you are writing the review article, so you need to know the word count and other aspects. So, we will spend some time on this to understand it out. What will be covered here will be the length of review article, the grammar, that's the editing part, grammar, plagiarism, overall presentation, and credibility of the review. Now, first comes to the length of review article. No review article is infinite, so you have to be careful with the word counts. Usually, word counts will be mentioned in the journal. That's why it's important that before you start writing the review article, you have idea in mind as which journal you want to publish. Once you know the journal in which you want to publish it, you know the word count that you want, and then you prepare everything based on the journal format so that it becomes easy. Now, a full length review typically is between 3 to 10,000 words. That's based on journal. 10,000 is maximum. Average, I would say, is between 5 to 6,000 words. Mini reviews are just 3,000 words. Systematic reviews are anywhere between 4 to 6,000 words. Integrative reviews are 3,000 words. A scoping review is around 4,000. The maximum length for a Cochrane review article is 10,000 words. Rapid reviews have anywhere between 3,000 words or less. Rest any other reviews on an average of 5,000 words. Only narrative reviews cross more than 10,000. But 10,000 words is too long to write, and hence journals don't accept it so much. So it is preferable that you fix yourself to 5,000 words and you go ahead only with it. So that is how you work out with the length of the review article. Then comes the next one, which is editing. Now, once you have written, even before it goes to your supervisor or to fellow researchers, you have to edit it. Editing is done by using Grammarly. It's a available website which you can do freely for it. It will do the spell check, grammar check, and all other typographical errors, and it will help you to do appropriate placement of words to convey the correct meaning. So this is Grammarly is very useful online tool that you have available, and this is an example of Grammarly editing. Once you feed in the paragraph, you get correctness, clarity, engagement, and delivery. You don't want to worry so much about this. You look for the mistakes which are there. When you click on them, it gives you the probable suggestions, and so you correct it accordingly. Mostly it will be the correction of adjectives, nouns, commas, and others which you have to take care of, and the statement construction, which will be easily worked out with. So once you have that, then you come to plagiarism. Now, this is the most important one. Plagiarism is an act of fraud. It is nothing but scientific stealing of someone else's writing. You take someone else's work or idea and you present as though it is yours. In precise words, plagiarism is an act of fraud. It involves stealing someone else's work. So it's essential that you don't have plagiarized manuscripts being submitted to journal. It should be what do you call it, that it should be authentic and have less than 5% plagiarism. So ensure that you follow the guidelines of the journal and work it out. There are so many of online plagiarism websites available like Grammarly, Qtext, DupliChecker, PlaxScan, Unicheck, Authenticate. One point to be remembered, none of the plagiarism softwares are freely available. You need to have commercial licensing and use it. Of course, when you submit to the journal has its own plagiarism software which it will use and give you. So you do your part, and when you submit it, then they will do their part and come back to you if in case they find it is like too much. This is an example of plagiarism. As shown by plagiarism checker, it will be color coded, and the ones which numbering will be there. And the numbers from 1 to 10 or 1 to 20 are the ones which will have maximum plagiarism. The output will have how much plagiarism is there. For example, this whole paragraph is plagiarized, and mostly it shows the sources from Wikipedia, and similarity is around 93%. That means basically nothing is written here, everything has been copied. So you need to be careful with that and ensure that you go on in a proper manner. Then there are aspects, once you consider about the editing aspects, the overall presentation of review article is another one where it is important. So there are aspects associated with it which have to be worked out. First, most important is fluency and cohesiveness. It should be written fluently and it should be quite cohesive in nature. When I mean cohesive, it should look like a proper scientific writing and not just like you have pasted literature reviews and you have put forth the observations from the papers. When you are writing multiple paragraphs, there should be proper interconnectivity between the paragraphs. Write the review article in a way as though you are developing your thesis, and that you will take sufficient care. Read it multiple times and do multiple corrections to make for mistakes and for fluency. Then here is an example for interconnectivity and flow. Now, not an example, but the tips for interconnectivity and flow. You need to state the purpose of the paragraph clearly when you are writing the paragraph. When you are ending the paragraph, you need to have that connecting statement which leads to the next paragraph. Don't use short or clipped sentences or some phrases which will be used for connecting. Use connecting words to build effective link. Use topic sentences and concluding sentences for each paragraph so that it looks more like that there is a flow as such. Now, this is a broad one for the interconnectivity and flow. As you can see, the topic sentence, then the explanation or definition for it, the evidence, the comment, and concluding sentence. All these sentences should have supporting statements and they all should be interconnected. Only when you have them being properly interconnected, you can work about with it and you can think of doing much more. So ensure that you are writing fluently and you're working it out fluently. Otherwise, you are going to be in trouble because the review will not be considered for publication. Now, after all the things are done, assuming that you consider, yes, I have done 100% from my side, the review is looking amazing, then you have to go for final credibility check of the review. When I say credibility check of the review, is the review making sense? Yes, because you have written, for you it does make sense, but does it make sense for others? So the review needs to be read by multiple people and you have to collect their opinion. First and foremost, pass on the review to your supervisor and collect his comments. That's the first thing which you do. Then provide a copies of the review to fellow researchers and collect their comments. Once you have done it, make the final corrections in the review. Now, remember one thing, that the review will look good as long as you don't send to journal. Once you send to journal, it's altogether a different game plan and plan wherein which the peer reviewing goes on, and there the reviewers might not feel it up to the mark that it can be done. And hence, from your side, ensure that the things are proper, make it in the format as how it's needed for the journal, and then you go ahead for sending it to the journal. So it is essential that you need to understand that you have to get the credibility check done, and then only we can go ahead about with it. So in order to get the credibility check done, give it to as many people as you can, get it done with as many people as possible, collect all the reviews, never neglect any negative comment. Go through the review again based on the negative comment, because everyone has their own opinion. You should not have any bias when you are collecting reviews from others about what you have written. Consider every point as every person as a potential reviewer, use it, and then we will work out based on it and see how it goes. So collect all the reviews, identify the positive comments, identify the negative comments, and once you have done the positive and negative comment identification, you go ahead with it and you draft the final versions. You get it recorrected from the supervisor a couple of times, and then you do the corrections yourself, make it ready for publication. Having said that, what is the exact timeline for writing and publishing a review? There is no specific answer for this question, but at least I would say 6 months is the average time in which it is needed to do the whole part. Because first, you have to identify the topic in which you want to write the review. Once you have identified the topic in which you want to write, then you have to collect the literature. Literature collection itself needs months. The reason being, you need, okay, even if you can collect literature fast, screening the literature and understanding how many papers are important might again make it to go for further literature review and get out more papers. So that needs quite a bit of time. Then you have to read, analyze, and then you have to evaluate the whole thing and make conclusions, which will again need time. Each of this will need around 2 months at least if you are going on a fast pace. If you are going on a slow pace, it will take much more time. Then you sit and start writing the review. When you start writing the review, at that time you come to know that still some more points are missing. Again, you go back, refer to the literature, get those points back. You write the review, you do the corrections yourself, then you do the editing, then you give to the supervisor and to others and get the corrections. So minimum time required for writing the review is around 6 to 7 months, and for publishing is altogether a different ball game, which we will discuss in the next week. So this is how it is. So you need to have a lot of patience, and you have to work slowly when you're working out with publishing the review and getting it out. And hence I would rather say that please go with it slowly, one at a time, and take inputs from people, and then appropriately you write it out. Don't be in a hurry to write anything or work out anything. So that will make it very troublesome, and you'll land up ultimately with only what are called as rejections, which will be disappointing you. So having said that, so with there, it ends the review paper writing part. But here we can offer you from the research graduate, we can offer you writing and editing services for you. If in case you are planning to write review articles, we can help you in writing and delivering it to you. Or if you have written but you want editing and further checks, we can do it for you. We have those services. Now, so the contact details and WhatsApp numbers are provided here. Please go ahead, feel free to contact us, and we are here to help you at any time. Having said that, let me tell you that we are going to conduct our next webinar coming Sunday. Now, if I have spoken on review paper writing, I'll be talking about how to publish a review paper. So it's a part 2 of this webinar series. The registration link will be emailed to you once this presentation is done. So review paper publication webinar is on 20th June, Sunday. Please ensure all the participants who are attending here, ensure that you attend that one, so that you'll get to know the tips and tricks for publishing the review paper. It will be great if you all of you can make it again, and we can have much more interesting session. Having said that, I hope you might have enjoyed this webinar, and these are the contents which will be covered in the review paper publication webinar. You can just scroll through them, based on which you can come up with your questions, which we will be happy to answer out. So we have aspects on how to publish the papers, different kinds of publications, sources, the criteria to pick for a particular journal. We are going to talk about impact factors, the steps for publishing, tips and tricks for publication, the ethics, and if you have a rejection, how you go about with it. So having said that, now we will start the live question answer session. You can proceed ahead and ask your questions, and I will be here to answer to you the various questions. So please go ahead and you can post the questions. Yes. So Arisha Taj M has, how can you please tell us about plagiarism check? How to overcome this problem in publications? Yeah, sure. So plagiarism check is the most critical one, which has been going on of late. And many a times you want to publish and you come out that it's still plagiarized. So it is better you get the plagiarism reports from the journal or get an idea as to which is the plagiarism website they are using. So when once you get to know about it, then you can download the same one or purchase it, use it, check, correct those things, and you can make use of them. And you have to get it below 5%, so you have to be careful about it. Yeah, where to search papers for literature review by Ankush. Yes, now I have given the sources that you can use for a literature review. Now there are so many of them. You can use PubMed, you can use Ovid, you can use Scopus, any of them. Or you can go for Google Scholar, type your words and you can get it done. So that is there quite elaborately mentioned, Ankush, in the initial slides. Please go through, you'll understand it and it will make easy for you to do it out. Uh, Ankush has how to write synopsis of research work. Yes, so synopsis of the research work needs to be brief and written properly. Now, let me tell you that when you are talking about for the research work synopsis, there was my earlier presentation on how to do for tips and tricks for PhD thesis that has the details of it. You can request Tejasvi or others to provide you with that, and if you go through, you'll get to know how to write the synopsis. Christian okay, here you have then you have yes, Anchal has a question. Can you tell little about bibliometric review? Meaning, as far as I understand, if you mean to say bibliometric review in the sense is based on the references one, is that what you mean? So then, if you are doing reviews for the referencing part of it, then it is a part of it and not a total review. So you could use any of the known organizers for that, and you will get out the details of it. You have yes, Dharmendra Bhushan has a question: how to proper use of Google Scholar? Now, Google Scholar per se is what do you call a easier one to be used. So I would say rather you type in the specific keywords and you should get out with the various details that you want and how you want them. If you still have issues, I would suggest on Wikipedia itself you can go and try to study how to use Google Scholar and then help you out. Natasha says some articles ask us to cite this article as, but the journal wants the reference in a specific style. Example APA, Vancouver, etc. So, which style do we follow in this situation? Now, that's a good point. This style, which style to be followed for referencing, will depend on the journal. Many of the journals have their own referencing style. So, please go to look in the journal, which is the referencing style they want, and then you can use the same one. So, yes, so Manoj Kumar has a question. Yeah, Sai Archana Murthy has a question. Tips on note making while selecting articles for literature review. Well, so when you are selecting articles for what are the tips, as I have mentioned, maybe that if I'm not very clear at that point, that you first select the articles. Then you go through in the details of the articles and see if you have what you want. If you do not have the things that you want, then you discard the article. Then next, in the articles that you think are of quite importance for you, you go through the abstract, you go through the discussion, and you go through the conclusion. Then you make notes from there. And if required, you have to go through figures. Usually, when you are reading 100 to 150 articles, the way we read is we read the abstract discussion and conclusion and make notes from there. And then only required, we'll go back to the figures which have been published, and then we will think of if we have to use it or not. Then, okay, then Sapna Sharma has a question: how to use Mendeley? Oh, well, Mendeley, you just download the free version and there will be in the app itself will have explanation as how to use it. Or you can go online and just take a short tutorial and then you can use the downloaded app in that way. Dr. Kumar Swami C has, is it manually doing of APA style? No, Dr. Swami, nowadays no one does manual curation for the references. You just download EndNote, Zotero or Mendeley, and you suggest which journal you want to publish, it will give you the citations and the way it has to be. So you don't have to worry about it, nor you need to do it manually, because manually there are a lot of errors which you can make and journals will not accept it. Sandra has a question. It's very difficult to download good papers. That's a very good point. Because there is so much of literature around that three-fourths of it is probably not related. And so it's like finding the what you call needle in the haystack. So it's like you have to pinpointedly take out the ones. That's the reason why it takes so much time to write the literature review. You download the papers, you keep screening. If you have downloaded 500 papers, probably you might have only 50 papers which have. And if your topic is not broad and too specific, you might only have 10 papers which talk of what you want. That's the reason why you need a lot of patience, as I was saying, to go through. And Neeraj Agarwal has a question: how to minimize publication time? Unfortunately, there is no way to minimize it. There's only one way, as I was telling. If you are not going for full length review article, if you are either going for mini reviews or for rapid reviews, probably you can minimize it. If you want a full length review article in a shorter time, you hunt down for such journals where peer reviewing will take less than what do you call, I think less than 3 to 4 months, and you can get it published. But unfortunately, that doesn't happen. So you go for either short articles or you go for mini reviews, or rapid reviews in that case are the best because that will give you the best answer. Then Dr. Kumar Swami has a question as why publishers are taking too much time. It is like that. A researcher spends most of his life publishing the papers because they take so much time. From the time you submit to the time it is published, it takes months, and there is no way anything can control it because they go through multiple layers of proofreading, multiple layers of checking for authenticity, and then final again they have so many corrections which make it suitable for publication. So it goes to be so much of a time. You cannot do much about it. Then we have Dr. Gopi has a question. Please brief on H index, I index for the scholar. Well, I will be doing this next week when we have for the publication. I will surely definitively address this question of H index and I index along with impact factors and others. So please ensure that you attend. At that time, I will answer the questions for you. Now, Pratibha has a question. While doing systematic review, can we use different simulators result for one single parameter analysis? Can we use different simulators results for? I think there is a probability that you could do it. It depends on the kind of software you are using. Just check out if you can do it, or there will be options in which you can combine some of them and get it out and see if it can happen. Otherwise you have to download such softwares where you can appropriately work it out. Shabana Azmi Malik has a question. What are the good impact Scopus journals to publish freely? Well, this is difficult. Now, most of the times, publication is no longer free, unfortunately. And since Scopus is from Elsevier, I don't think there are many where you might have free publication. Please check for this. The best option is to check in the Scopus index or in the Elsevier ones, which are Scopus indexed. Are there any free journals? If you have, you can. I doubt if you have any of them like that. Con- uh, Kanchan has a question. I am doing PhD in HRM. Kindly suggest some journals where I can publish my work. Well, I will. I couldn't get what exactly is HRM. If you have the full form of it, is you mean to say human resource management? Then we need to look at it. Even I do not have much idea of it, but maybe by next week I can come back as an answer for that. Mm, Mahendra has a question. How can I do meta-analysis? As I said, though it might not be included in the slide, meta-analysis is done using softwares. One software I used and I know is Rev Manager 5. In that, you feed the data and it will give you the forest plot or the funnel plot and you will get it done. Now, Dr. Mahesh has a question. How meta-analysis helps in social science? Exactly. Social science as such is a broad field. You are looking for impact or you are looking for variables effect on, parameters on population. You can definitively do meta-analysis. So you collect the papers and then you can do it. Meta-analysis is not something which is just restricted to scientific field, but it is for all of them. Deepa has a question. You were saying about primary, secondary, and tertiary literature. Would like to know, is there any percentage to use this and write using secondary and tertiary? It it should be cite the primary paper. No, if you are using secondary or tertiary literature, it is better you cite them directly. You can't cite the primary paper which is used in secondary literature because that is a secondary citation. We only want primary citations for writing. Hence, it would be appropriate and it is feasible that you go ahead and work with citing that specific literature, not going back for the literature which has been cited in the literature. Sharad says, which journal is suitable for publishing review articles? There's nothing like that, Sharad. Which field are you? It depends on. And you have almost all the journals accept review articles. Then what is the impact factor you want to publish in? That will decide which journal it is and how to go about with it. Ajay says, how and from where website to download Scopus? I think you have a free download for Scopus. You just go on to Google, type it, and you should get it. Or otherwise, it will tell you an option from where you can download it. I don't think it is so problematic to do that out. Then Sumi says, as suggested to write introduction after conclusion, is it the same way for PhD thesis? Exactly. Actually, it goes the same for PhD thesis as well as for paper. Never write the introduction first. You write all others, then you come to introduction in the end. Umesh Chaudhary says, how can we screen research papers in a short period of time? That's a very good question. Now, if you want to screen 1,000 papers, not 1,000, this is just like an example, 500 papers in 1 month, you have to use filters. That's where you go to the web organizers, that's the literature organizers, give in the keywords, get the best papers out, and then you do it. Now, in most of these cases, you can put first you use a broad filter, then you start narrowing down the filters, and then you come down, then you work it out. Now, Kusuma says how to write proposal and what are the concepts should be involved into what are the credentials to be expected while proposing. Well, it will be there again. You have some of the aspects which are identical to what we are talking today. The proposal, when you write, should be clear cut, concise, and it should be precise and it should convey the meaning. However, it is not too much in the scope of this. If we are conducting proposal writing webinars in the future, so I'll definitely address this question. Now, what are the tips to get published research article in SCI or SCIE journal? I'm going to talk about this next week because we are going to talk about publication, so you will get to know about it. Now Ankush says, what is the difference between SCI, Web of Science, and Scopus? All are interrelated. It's different terms which are used for different databases, but all of them do get interrelated. Scopus and Web of Science come under the similar one, and they are usually what are used. Only difference is a few of the journals might not be there here and there. Sir, simply tell some ideas to write to start research article. Chandrasekhara K has asked. So there's a simple ideas would mean you must have at least some topic on which you want to write the research article. Pick up the topic, go to Google search, or to be more specific, to the Google Scholar. Start collecting the papers and start working. Once you get into the flow, you can automatically do the things. How do we find the research gap? Is a question by Ashish Badula. Research gap is identified based on the complete collection. So you first collect all the papers, you make the notes, you conclude. When you put all the conclusions together, you will understand the research gap immediately. Then, yes, Umesh Chaudhary says, what points need to be considered while criticizing the papers? Well, as a critic, you have to go through the paper completely. You have the prior knowledge of the field. Utilizing the prior knowledge and utilizing the question that you have, try to criticize the paper. Then Vincent has a question. In a situation where a supervisor does not know the three types of literatures, what next? Absolutely no problem. If the supervisor doesn't know, you don't have to educate him. You use all the three and you cite them. And if the supervisor asks, then you can say this has been taken from a reference text or from a bibliographical reference, and so it is like this. You show the proof of the journal that how to cite for the references, and you are using the same citations. So that should answer your question. Then Vidyadhara has a question. What are the charges for review writing on a topic? Well, that part will be answered by Tejaswi because she's the one who deals with most of it. So you check with her what are the charges for doing it, and she can help you out with it. Saida Ashila has a question. Doctor, can you give tips on writing thesis proposal? I'm a newbie here. Well, this one is not too much concerned with that, so I might not be answering too much about it. Earlier, also, there was a question on the proposal one, which I said in the future when we address webinars on the proposals, it will be more apt. This is more on review paper writing. Is it necessary to frame the topic with a review or an overview of specific study? Whether the Scopus Index journals accept the review papers? That's a question by Nazima Banu. Yes, Scopus Index journals accept review papers, but not all journals. You have first, that is the reason why I said first you need to identify the journal where you want to publish and see if that particular journal has the option for review articles. If the journal doesn't have, then you go through the entire list and see which are the journals which accept review articles. And once you have that, you only go for those journals. You don't go for all the journals. Bindu Anthony has a question. Is it compulsory that we have to publish our part in a Scopus journal? No, not required. There are journals which are not Scopus indexed where you can publish it. So it all depends on how you want to do and where you want to do. Then uh, Kamal Narayan has a question. If any of plagiarism check has given us no plagiarism, is it possible that another checker will give some? Yes, absolutely. That is the reason why never get your what do you call return material checked by multiple plagiarism websites. Usually, one website says there is no plagiarism, other one says there is a lot. It is always preferred that you do with only one plagiarism checker all the time, or follow the plagiarism checker which is used by the journal and get it done. Don't feed into multiple ones. You will land into troubles, and so it will never be it is never ending procedure then. Uh, Yeah, Ragni Kumari says, I need PPT of last session. Yes, well, Tejas, we can provide you with that. There is no problem. Satish Kale has a question. How many minimum number of research papers are required to write review paper? It depends from journal to journal, but it cannot be, the bibliography cannot be like 2 to 300. You have sometimes for critical reviews, it has 2 to 300. Regular reviews are typically like 100 papers or so. Mm, Priyanka has a question. Can you suggest some journal finder online software? Um, Even we have to look at it. I would give you one suggestion that you go ahead and you give a list of journals to be found on Google, and then it will ask you for specific stream. Then you can look for whichever stream you are working for and get all the journals appropriate. As such, specific softwares per se, even I am not sure of that. We do have any such. Sumangala Rao has a question. Guides insist that paid journals are predatory. Well, guides do say they are predatory journals, but most of the journals nowadays are paid, so we cannot do much. Otherwise, it's like you have to fish out the journal which is free for publishing and then publish in it. I can bet and tell you that there are only very few journals which do that. So it's better you go for the paid journals only. Daniel has a question. What's the best and quick way of writing an article for publication? Quick and best way is, you if you want to write an article for publication, have everything ready as fast as you can, write it fast, get it corrected fast, and submit it, because once you submit it, anyways gets delayed for publication. So from your end, you be fast in doing it, it will get done. And if you want really quick and fast ones, one of the best ideas is go for short articles or for rapid reviews, then it will be done very fast. I Dharmendra Bhushan has a question. How to download paid journal in free of cost? Dharmendra, that is not possible because it's a paid journal. If you have any of the things which you are put forth and all, you cannot download it free of the cost. So it is not possible. So don't even think of it. Mahendra has a question. How I can increase and maintain my interest in paper writing? Now, in this particular case, how can I increase and maintain my interest in paper writing? Well, for this, you need to have the curiosity and exploratory ideas so that you can go ahead and do the paper writing. Because by the time you do the literature review, you will get exhausted. And once you get exhausted, by the time you are done with it, you will not have time to do anything else. So you need to keep your inquisitiveness and your scientific spirit strong, so that once you finish the literature review, you can go for the paper writing as such. Now, Prafulla Ranjan Mishra says, I'm pursuing PhD in chemistry. What are the various journals where you could publish it? Kindly suggest some topics. Well, what area of chemistry are you working out with? It is important. Is it organic? Is it inorganic? Is it bioanalytical? Then you can have topics based on it, because chemistry per se is too wide. Focus on it and then you go with it. Arisha has a question. Sir, we could find graphical abstract and conclusion abstract in most of journals. Is it necessary to include these graphs? Kindly suggest. In addition, the importance of graphs. Now, nowadays, most of the journals wants to have graphical abstracts, and then there is no point about it that if they want it, you have to put it. Is it necessary to include this? Yes, if the journal wants, you have to include it. The importance of graphical abstracts or graphs is that it makes everything very broad and useful. Now, you present a graphical abstract, then it is very easy to focus on it and work out on it. Otherwise, it is not possible to do it. So you put the graphical abstract, people will understand immediately. It is to catch the reviewer's attention that you are trying to do it, and hence it is fine in that way. Pavan Kumar has a question. May we present a simulation article, simulation results for a review? Well, you can do the overall conclusions of the simulation, but you do not present the simulations for your review. That is what is the most important thing. The simulation results, yes, you can probably present it, but whether if the authors or the peer reviewers have problems with it, then you do not work out with it. Then Surinder Kumar Bhutani. Did I ask relevant question? 5 questions requested, which are deleted. Okay. Uh, Sushma has a question. Hypothesis and research methodology in review article. Yes, so yes, you can have it, but research methodology is very brief in review articles, and hypothesis you already mentioned in the introduction, so there is no problem associated with it. Ganesh has a question. Is there any requirement or suggestion for minimum number of literature reviews for the review paper to get selected in the Scopus Index journal? There is no such thing as such, Ganesh, that you need to have minimum number of literature reviews for the review paper. You go for as much as possible. I don't know that there is any minimum number, because when you're writing review, you'll easily have 50 to 60 papers at least. Uh, okay, with that, here is points to be noted before I end the webinar. The participation certificate for the various people who have been a participants will be emailed to you by 2:30 p.m. today or 4:30 p.m. tomorrow. You will get recording of this webinar and PPT on your email at 2:45 p.m. today. The link to register for paper publication webinar will be mailed to you today or tomorrow. So you will get all the details relevant. Um, Huge thanks for all of you for attending this webinar. I hope to see all the participants who have attended today to attend the next webinar, because it's a continuation webinar, and don't miss it, as it will help you to understand how to publish it. And the references have been put forth, which will be helpful for you guys. So thanks everyone for attending this webinar and making it successful. See you next week. Please remember to join for our webinar next Sunday on 20th June on publication of the review paper. Thanks a lot and have a nice day.